Now I would like to call Tom Carlisi to the mic to introduce our keynote speaker. But as Tom makes his way, Byron, could you please come in for a second?
Make sure you're here.
I just want to say, my wife and I are subscribers to the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, and the last one we went to was John Clayton was there, and Byron was up in front, and he asked, what it was worth to people who were sitting in the front to be at that concert, and a lady gave him $5. And John made a comment about, is that all you're worth? Well, I think you're worth 20 times that. So let me give Columbus Jazz Orchestra a check for $100. Columbus Jazz Arts Group. But seeing that I'm a Rotarian, I'm going to have to give $100 to our foundation too.
Oh, that was nice.
And now I'd like to call up Tom Carlisi of Carlisi & Associates to introduce our guest speaker.
First of all, I want to acknowledge that our fellow Rotarian and jazz enthusiast, Larry Anderson, would have been introducing our guest speaker today. However, Larry is having a medical procedure and he cannot be with us. On behalf of our Rotary Club, I want to wish him a speedy recovery. President Steve, fellow Rotarians and guests, it's my privilege to introduce one of the great artists of our era in our community, Mr. Byron Stripling, Artistic Director of the Columbus Jazz Orchestra. A little background music here. Byron was born in Atlanta, Georgia, the son of a classical singer and choir director, and was influenced by gospel and jazz music during his formative years, including the works of Miles Davis, Clark Terry, and Louis Armstrong. Byron started playing trumpet around the age 10, and he sang in the choir. At the Eastman School of Music, he met Clark Terry, who asked Byron to join his band. This led to a 12-week gig during a tour of Europe. Close to graduation, Byron was introduced to Lionel Hampton. He hired Byron immediately, and a career was born. The next decades included stints with Woody Herman, Count Basie, Dizzy Gillespie, and Buck Clayton. In 1988, he was selected from national auditions to play the lead in the musical Satchmo, America's Living Legend. During this performance run, Byron has been quoted as saying, "For me, it was important as being one of the ways in which I learned how to integrate entertainment into the musical presentation in a comfortable way." In 1989, he first played with the Boston Pops Orchestra, conducted by John Williams. That led him to appear with over 50 different symphony and pops orchestras, including performing with the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra and the Carnegie Hall Jazz Band. Byron has played with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, and in 2002, he became the artistic director of the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, being the natural successor to the founder Ray Eubanks when he retired. Byron's duties include event programming, selecting guest artists, balance between the artistic and the commercial, and the production wherever he's needed. In the meantime, he delights the audience with his engaging personality, trumpet musicianship, and soulful singing. And finally, I just wanted to think about a couple connections Byron has in common with our Columbus Rotary. First of all, our Rotary supports Columbus City Schools through mentorship and our service above self-care. Well, Byron and the Columbus Jazz Orchestra also provides mentorship to the Columbus City Schools through their performing arts with the performing arts students. Our club has visited the Lincoln Theater in support of the remodeling and the grand reopening. Byron and the Jazz Orchestra performs there and gives people like us joyful experiences in iconic places like the Southern Theater and the Lincoln Theater. Our Columbus Rotary is invited to go to the zoo this coming December 17th. And we're even going to have a Rotary Day at the zoo with a cocktail hour. Well, last summer, Byron invited the whole community to come to his birthday bash as part of the Jazz Zoo series. And if you want to really jazz up your holiday, please take one of the flyers on your table. And if you want to really see something special, it's Home for the Holidays starting this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Byron Stripling.
Appreciate it, man. I'd like to see you looking swell.
Baby.
Little rehearsal here. Baby. Baby. With enthusiasm, please. Baby. What? I'm conducting up here. I go first. Baby. Baby. Much better. G. I'd like to see you looking swell. Whoa. Who jumped in on the baby? Before you say baby, you got to say and then say baby. You'll never miss it then. Can I hear the please? No, like he used to go like All right, one more time on the All right, so it's and then baby. G. I'd like to see you looking swell. Baby. Now diamond bracelets Woolworth doesn't sell. Baby. Until that lucky day, you know darn well. Baby. I can't give you anything but love. Sabado papodo to that. No. At that point, you gotta go, oh yeah, and get some chicken grease in your throat. Can we practice the oh yeah? Oh yeah. But more pork chop juice right up in here, right? Here we go with the oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, great. So we do one baby and then we do the oh yeah. Till that lucky day, you know darn well. Ooh, baby. I can't give you anything but love. Sabado papodo tozat. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Here we go with the oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, let's do oh yeah one more time. And hold the yeah. Listen, please. Hold the oh yeah, and I'm going to give you your parts. We're going to have a choir here. So you're holding the oh yeah, section 1 here, middle section 2, over there section 3. You think we can do this? So it's oh yeah, and then I'm going to give you your notes. Are you ready? Here we go with the oh yeah. Oh yeah, la, 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 la. Louder, louder. Now give yourselves a hand. Well, Olga, good. They have a clock up here. What time should I be done on this clock? Right now it's 8. Don't yell at me. I'm very sensitive. Good. 10 till. I got so much stuff to talk to you about, but I will do 10 till. And take questions before 10 till or after 10 till. What if I don't like the questions? I don't have to answer them. I wasn't going to answer them anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, I was very nervous about coming to see you here. First of all, I got lost. Where's Scott? Thank you for guiding me here. How do you get to this place? I put it on my GPS, and they had me all in the up, but he guided me down the path of righteousness. Just so you know, I don't do north, south, east, and west. You have to tell me left or right, or that I don't do all that, and the GPS was not doing a good job, so we appreciate that. Also, I want you to know I was very nervous upon coming here. The last time I spoke at a Rotary, we had difficulty. I was doing the same thing I was doing with you guys. You know, I can't give you anything but love. And I was giving, because as an artist, you want people to like you. You know, that's my thing. I've been in therapy for many years for this. I want people to like me. And so I'm giving, and I'm giving, and I'm giving, and I'm singing, and I'm singing, and I'm singing. And right in the front row, this is at the Rotary in Westerville. All of a sudden I heard this. So I actually got a little tinkle, as they say, and I actually stopped, and I said, excuse me, miss, is this your husband? And she said, yes, it is. I said, well, he's disturbing my performance here. She said, well, what do you want me to do about it? I said, well, could you wake him up? She said, you put him to sleep, you wake him up. True story. No, because some people have true stories that aren't true, and I want you to know that all my true stories are true, because I don't want to end up on Oprah later, you know. Honey, did you really do that? You know, so, very true. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you a little bit today about jazz. Does anybody like jazz in this audience? 3 people, 4 or 5 people like jazz. What we know is jazz could only be born in America. They're really, New Orleans is the birthplace of jazz. And as we go around the country and we travel, people always want to hear American jazz. Been fortunate this last year of being in Malaysia and Switzerland, all different places in Europe, and you go there and the people immediately want to hear the glory, the majesty of what jazz is all about. So the birthplace of New Orleans is really important, and there are really 3 kings of New Orleans. The first one was a guy named Sidney Bechet, who was a soprano saxophone player. The second one was a guy named Jelly Roll Morton. Anybody ever heard of Jelly Roll Morton? He was one of the great piano players, a real character, as all the New Orleans musicians were. He was always immaculately dressed. He had a gold tooth, and he would say to you, "I invented jazz." And of course, we know that that wasn't true. But what he did do was he began to pioneer the birth of jazz. He started playing in these places in New Orleans. They were, let's see, how do I say this? They were houses, shall we say. This is uncomfortable, isn't it? I'm trying to figure out a way to do this for Rotary. How about this? They were full-service entertainment centers. Is that sort of this? So Jelly Roll would play there, and he had a way of playing, because before him, you know, people were playing things almost like church-like and very classical in nature. And he needed to figure out a way to help those people in the full-service entertainment center entice their customers, and perhaps with a small little dance, right? So he had a way of playing a greasy sort of blues that would give the feeling and the beat for that. And that is why people always call jazz the devil's music, because it was born in these full-service entertainment centers. So right off the bat, jazz had a bad sort of name. The New Orleans musicians, they didn't care about integrating any type of music together. In fact, the fusion that they created was the thing that created American music. So even if they heard a song in church, they would play it in a nightclub. So if they heard Just a Closer Walk with Thee or something like that, they say, "Hey man, remember that song we was playing and singing in church? Let's play it here in the nightclub." So they always fused together all these different styles of music. Very much like their food. It's really like a gumbo, and they mixed all these things together. Again, this is another characteristic of New Orleans, because what New Orleans had was the sound. They had all these opera houses. They had great orchestras in New Orleans. They had the brass bands, like the Eagle and the Olympia brass bands. They had, the tradition in New Orleans is when someone dies, they play a slow dirge on the way to the funeral. And then when the funeral is over, they play something like The Saints Go Marching In, because they celebrate that life. Because they say that person has gone on to a better place. And so they play Saints Go Marching In, and they walk and they march out of the funeral place, and their people begin to join them who weren't even a part of the funeral. And we call this the second line, and you've seen that with people with their umbrellas following these people. These are the traditions that created jazz. But there was one man who was central to the greatness of jazz, and his name was Louis Daniel Satchmo Armstrong. And he came from the poverty of the streets of New Orleans and went on to become an ambassador of jazz. Louis Armstrong changed music because before him, everyone who communicated in music communicated with a European concept of sound or tone. So people were used to this sound. They were used to Don Giovanni in a very operatic sort of way of singing. But Louis Armstrong came along and said, "Ba-do-ze-do, bo-do-za, yeah." So he took all those sounds of New Orleans that we talked about, all those funeral marches, all that celebration that you heard, all the music that he heard in the church, all the music he heard from his people in those full-service entertainment centers, and he put it all together and made his own gumbo that became that four-letter word jazz that we know today. He was powerfully influential in American music and in turn music all over the world. So when Louis Armstrong, imagine coming from poverty, being born in New Orleans, and he often said, he said two things. He says, "I would have just been happy if I would have stayed in New Orleans." But he also said, "I know that I'm here in the cause of happiness." And when we heard the sound of his voice,
And when we heard the sound of his trumpet, we really heard the sound of America, the sound of democracy, because that's what jazz is. So now, in my travels, when I go all over the world, people want to hear Cole Porter, they want to hear George Gershwin, they want to hear Duke Ellington. And one of the things that's interesting is when the Cold War started to die down, America wanted to sort of send some musical ambassadors overseas. They wanted to send them to like Russia and show them the greatness of American music. So somebody got the bright idea and said, well, get the New York Philharmonic. Let's send them over there. And they went over to Russia and they played Tchaikovsky. And they came back quickly. And somebody got another idea and said, well, let's send the New York City Ballet over there. And they ran over there and they danced Swan Lake. And they came back quickly. And somebody said, well, let's try this. Let's send over Duke Ellington. Let's send over Dave Brubeck. Let's send over Count Basie. Let's send over Louis Armstrong. Let's send over Mahalia Jackson. And what they heard there was the sound of America. When we go over to Europe and in any countries, people are amazed that what they're seeing us do, ladies and gentlemen, is improvisation. And improvisation is like watching someone think on their feet. It's like watching somebody create something spontaneously in the moment, because Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony is supposed to sound like Tchaikovsky's Fifth Symphony in Russia or in New York City. But jazz is supposed to sound different every night. And when you see people on that stage improvising, making music in the moment, there's this interplay, and also, but you can do within the confines of that what you want to do, how you want to do it. And that's what Louis Armstrong did. So what they heard from American music, what they heard from jazz, was the sound of freedom. Because you could play whatever you wanted to play. Louis Armstrong was a man who demonstrated that more than anything. He inspires me throughout my life in everything that I do. And I look to him. When I'm down, I simply put on one of his records and I feel the joy, the clarion call of his trumpet. You know, later in his life, when he had all those hits that we love so much, like What a Wonderful World, Hello Dolly, Mac the Knife, Cabaret, Blueberry Hill, so many others, he started to do very well financially at the end. And around that time, his wife Lucille and his manager Joe Glazer got together, and they secretly put money down on an exclusive mansion in Long Island, New York. This was a huge house, museum-like, with manicured lawns, maids' quarters. And as Louis was about to sign the closing papers for that deal, he paused for a minute. And then he put down his pen. He said, you know, I can't do this. Well, I'm happy living right where I live in a small working class community of Corona, Queens. And I've seen that house. It's just a quaint little house with a little garden in the back. See, if you want to see the real Louis Armstrong, all you had to do was go to the local grocery store. And there you'd see him buying his red beans and rice and black-eyed peas and collard greens and cornbread and buttermilk and chitlins and candied yams and crawfish etouffee and shrimp gumbo. If you wanted to see the real Louis Armstrong, stop by the local barber shop, and there you'd see him in a front chair getting his hair cut. If you wanted to see the real Louis Armstrong, stop by his house any afternoon he was off the road. There he would buy ice cream for all the little kids in the neighborhood. He called them my little ice cream eaters. That's because Louis Armstrong knew something that we all know intuitively. And that is that the best things in life are free. And I think he'd want me to share with you my three wishes I offer you with love. And they say, I wish I had a telescope to scan the starry skies. But since I have no telescope, I'm glad I have two eyes. And I wish I had a kitchen run by push-button command. But since that kitchen is still a dream, I'm glad I have two hands. And I wish I had a Rolls Royce to give you, my friends, a ride, a treat. But since that car's a few weeks to come, I'm glad I have 2 feet. I've got 2 eyes to look to God above, 2 hands to clasp in prayer, 2 feet to take me anywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at a millionaire. Yeah. I wanted to quickly let you know that music to me is this thing that sustains me in my life. I know that I'm here like Louis Armstrong, and I feel I'm here in the cause of happiness. But I also remember what William James said. He said, I forgot what he said. But what we know is music is the thing that uplifts and inspires us. But we also know that humor can also lift people when we're trying to convert people. What William James said about music is he says, I sing not because I'm happy, but I'm happy because I sing. And what I learned and what I want to offer you is that music, just the mere act of singing, the mere act of being involved in the creation of music is really food for the soul and provides valuable nourishment for the community. It can uplift the community. So rather than showing them your guns, sing them a song. Go to another country and say, let's sing together, let's play together, let's write poetry together, let's do these things together. And in that way, you bring together, it's hard to fight somebody when you're singing with them. It's hard to slap them upside the head. It's hard to pull out your gun. This is what music does for people. It has a way of bringing people together, but also humor. We are giving our holiday concert coming up, and one of the things that we'll include in that concert is two songs. One is O Hanukkah, and the other one is I Have a Little Dreidel. And I love those two songs because I have something in common with Sammy Davis Jr. I feel I'm almost Jewish. When I went to New York City, it was very lonely. I lived there for 10 years, and those beginning years were tough for me. But I met a guy named Five-ish Finkel. And Five-ish you might have seen in a show called Boston Public, but he was one of the great Yiddish performers of all time. And he took me over his house, and he and his son Ian, and they adopted me as one of their own. And they showed me kreplach and latkes and all these foods. I did not like the gefilte fish. I want that on record. They reminded me of those pig feet that you see up on the shelf that stay there forever. But they had amazing food, most of which I had never seen. They called me Byron, and I was one of theirs. And I learned so much from them. And Five-ish told me that the best way to disarm someone is through humor, because he was sort of performer and also comedian. And he shared with me a letter. There was a guy that sent in a letter to Dear Abby, and he was ranting about how he didn't like Jewish people, and very anti-Semitic letter. And there was a guy named Sam Levinson, who was one of the great comedians, and he wrote back to the newspaper his answer to the anti-Semite, and it's very funny. I think you'll enjoy it. One of my favorite letters. And Sam Levinson said, it's a free world. You don't have to like Jews, but if you don't, I suggest that you boycott certain Jewish products, like the Wassermann test for syphilis, Digitalis discovered by Dr. Nussman, boycott insulin discovered by Dr. Manusky, chlorohydrate for convulsions discovered by Dr. Leifrich, the shake test for diphtheria, boycott vitamins discovered by Dr. Funk, streptomycin discovered by Dr. Z. Veronin, the polio pill by Dr. A. Sabin, and the polio vaccine by Dr. Jonas Salk. Go ahead, boycott. Humanitarian consistency requires that my people offer all of these gifts to all the people in the world. Fanatical consistency like yours requires that people who don't like Jews should get syphilis, should have diabetes, convulsions, and diphtheria. So go ahead and boycott, but you're not going to feel very good. So that's by Sam Levinson. Finally, I just want to wrap up with sort of letting you know the three things that jazz musicians do to sort of enrich their lives, but also show those three skills that you can integrate into your life, the same ones that jazz musicians use to become a better person and a better listener and succeed even higher in your career. First, they have the thing that we do daily. This is called practice every day. What we know is that practice is the price of proficiency. In anything that you want to do well, you have to practice it every day. So in doing that, always underline the word every day, because what we know is that repetition is the mother of skill. So jazz musicians practice every day, and they hone and refine their skills. They make daily practice a habit. And so what we say is that first we make our habits, and then our habits make us. So form good habits and make those habits your master. Here's the second thing that they do. They practice listening. What we know is that everyone is listening to their own personal radio station, WIIFM. That's what's in it for me. So they listen, but when you listen, you need to become what we call an attentive listener. That means that you need to lean in and listen for the specifics of the conversation. By the way, women do this very well. Men have a wire that's missing, and it's hard for us to become good listeners, but usually a good woman will teach you that. They're very good about doing that. All the women are nodding their head. But listening is so important. But you have to really be attentive in doing it. You know, there's a sign in a Las Vegas casino that says you must be present to win. And that's true in Las Vegas, but it's also true in your life. And so in the process of listening, you must be present. And the people that you talk to can feel that. So what we recommend is that when you talk to somebody, if you ever talk to somebody while they were on their iPhone and typing and doing things, and they never could give you that full attention. So if you give, which is so hard to do these days, but I demand it of my own children, is that we have that eye contact when we listen. And then, as you know, the best way then to respond to that is not to give your opinion of that, but actually to repeat back what they said. If you want to develop yourself to that next level, whether you're in sales, because we do it in music as musicians, but we also are in sales because everybody is. Very important that you do that, repeat back to that person, because that is the way that you develop rapport. And in your life, you have to develop rapport if you're going to move it to the next level. So practice every day. Practice the skills that are going to help you. Number 2, practice listening. And number 3, model the masters. We call this creative emulation. And what we know is that we do what the successful people have done. If you do this, then you turn your decades into days. So what we say for that is that we have to engage ourselves in reading. That all leaders are great readers. So we have to really focus in on reading. Somebody says, well, what should I read? We know that we need to read mental protein, not mental candy. Read those things that we know will uplift us and serve us. Serve our greatest good as we read every day. So you could save John Grisham and those guys for your leisure reading, but have something, and preferably remember what Henry Ward Beecher said when he said that the first hour of the day is the rudder of the day. So we read right early in the morning, also right before you go to sleep. Those are 2 hours when your mind is more amenable to suggestion. If we practice every day, if we practice listening, if we model the masters, if we do what the successful people have already done, where we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we can learn from them by reading. We do those 3 things and combine them with this final thing. Then we get to the highest level, especially in jazz, but I know it will work for you too. And that's the ability of self-discipline. And self-discipline is really a self-enlarging process, a way of extending our limits where we have no one to blame but ourselves for any lack or limitation. Self-discipline really means doing what you know you should do, even when you don't want to do it. So what we know in self-discipline, it's really about 2 steps forward and doing that tenaciously. But what happens is that you take those 2 steps forward and then you fall back one. You say, oh man. But then you have to be tenacious and you move again. You get 2 steps even further, maybe 3, and something pushes you back. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is where most people quit. They say, well, it must not work. And what we know is then we have to change our approach. We have to do some different things, because obviously we've been doing some right things, but then we keep falling back, so you push ahead. And you fall back one more time. And this is really where people lose it. And what we say for this stage here, when you've been pulled back, is we say, you can't quit. If you're doing different things, right? Because we know that the path to our goal, the path to what we want to be, is not always a straight line. So we have to go like this. As the poet said, take the road less traveled sometimes, and keep recalculating the GPS, right? So you don't quit. So you realize what the poet said when he said, when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're traveling seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. For life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a failure turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. So don't give up though the pace seems slow. You will succeed with another blow. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint in the clouds of doubt. And you can never tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit. I open for a couple questions now, and we'll wrap up. Two questions. Is that okay? We have time for two? Two quick questions. This better be good, sir.
All right. Other than Louis Armstrong, who would you consider the greatest trumpet player, current or past?
Well, you know, I can't name one, so I'll give you a whole bunch. But Louis Armstrong is the father of us all. Then there's the great Roy Eldridge, and then there was my good friend Dizzy Gillespie. These are people who wrote the rules on how to play jazz trumpet. And when they played, it was so different than everybody else. Those are three different ways of playing. Dizzy Gillespie with the puffed cheeks, but he invented this style called bebop, which rhythmically, harmonically, and melodically changed everything in jazz. I encourage all of you to study and listen to those people, and it will truly enrich your life. But those, Roy Eldridge and Dizzy Gillespie are two key ones. One last final question. Now, you've got the final one. So think about it. Is it going to be good?
I'm going to try.
Okay, go for it.
Before my question, I just want to say
I say to you, sir, l'chaim.
we've had a lot of incredible speakers, and for me, I think you've been one of the best. And we appreciate
Keep going. In fact, let's just stay on that. Keep talking.
You've got a lot of depth, and thanks for sharing that.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Anyway, my question, you said 10 years you spent in New York, and I'm just wondering, with all that you touch and you do, I would imagine Broadway was a big piece of that. Can you just give us a little piece of the bite you took out of the Big Apple?
Well, around that time, and I'll try to brief on this, around that time, my goal was to become one of the top recording trumpet players in the business. And the recording industry was real hot at that time. Then it's like started to just fall away. But I was recording with people like, George Michael and Burt Bacharach, and just every day would be, Aretha Franklin and Whitney Houston and Luther Vandross. And I was playing all these people's records. I was playing TV shows with them and things like that. And then I was playing Broadway pit shows at night and doing that whole thing. And I did some acting and stuff, and I appeared in a few movies and things. And I was playing a lot for Woody Allen movies and things like that. But then gradually I got to be doing my own soloing, and I started traveling a lot, going out playing with symphony orchestras like the Boston Pops. And a couple weeks ago I played with the Dallas Symphony, and then a few weeks before that the Vancouver Symphony. When I was in Malaysia, I played with their orchestra, and I played, like you said, now it's up to about almost 100 symphony orchestras. So I transitioned my career while I was in New York, but was good for me because I sort of saw the vision, and I used a technique I was taught by a friend of mine called back from the future planning. And it's where you see, what you want to do in the future, and then you just plan back. Where is the industry now? And that's what we all need to do in our careers. Where is my industry now, and how will it change? Like, what are the things I need to be doing now for this industry? Because the recording industry that I was in no longer exists. The biggest retailer of music in the world, ladies and gentlemen, is iTunes. That didn't exist in the 90s when I was in New York in the late 80s. So I used back from the future planning, I saw what the trends were, but also I think it's important for you to not only become one that follows trends, but one that creates the trends. That you set your own path for that. You become one of the leaders in this. So, and that's the hard piece of this. Can I tell one last story and then I'll be done? I think leadership is so important in this thing, and I was just thinking today, I heard a story about, you remember that we had a few years back, because we're going to do a concert in tribute to homeless people. Remember when we had Katrina and all these people were left homeless? Leadership means that you do above and beyond and you break rules too. And it's not comfortable sometimes. When they had Katrina, this big storm, some people heard about it. It took the U.S. military and really the United States, as we know, it's a weird time in our country. It took us about 3-4 days to actually respond to that. Well, there was a ship from Canada that showed up as soon as the storm kind of died down. And they ended up saving 110 people. And there was one guy, they climbed up on top of a house and they just started knocking on roofs because it was awful. And this guy heard this knock on this roof. He's like, "Who is it?" And they said, "Well, we're here to help you." And so they dug through it. He stood back and they, got through the roof and they pulled this guy up. And he said, "Who are you guys? I didn't even recognize this uniform." They were from Vancouver, and it was the Royal Mounted Police, and they were there right as soon as it happened. You know why they were there? Because they didn't follow any of the rules. You're supposed to get permission to go through the what do you call it? Not airspace, the water space. If you're from a foreign country to come into, it's like the captain of that ship said, "We got to go save people. That's what we do. This is who we are. I don't care about the rules. If they want to stop us, they can stop us. But we're going to save people's lives." They were on the ground immediately. That took leadership. So in our own lives, I think we have to think about what rules do I need to break and what sort of current trends do I need to go against to make it happen for me and my company. If you do these things, and if you do them well, you will and must become the person or the company that you want to be. Thanks so much for listening to me. We appreciate it. Yes, they have a little thing on your the Home for the Holidays. And if you want to come see us, there's a little code there. You'll get $5 off our Wednesday show. So just go there. All the information is there. I hate selling stuff to you, but it's going to be a great concert with a great guest artist. She's going to sing Old Hanukkah. I'm going to sing Dreidel.
Thank you so much for coming to Columbus Rotary. Really appreciate it. On behalf of our club from Dick Argo and Argo and Laney Jewelers, a gift. So enjoy the holidays, and thank you again, and you're welcome anytime.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Byron. Everybody have a great week. Next week we have Don DePero here. Rick Studer's going to basically interview. So please come next week. It'll be great. It'll be a great meeting. Have a great week, and we are adjourned.